everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So it's that time of month again. It's time for another reading wrap up. So let's get into it. So instead of starting with the books that I read at the beginning of the month, I'm going to start with books that I liked the most. So I'm starting with First Time Caller, which I really enjoyed this month. I was really skeptical about giving it a shot at first because this author also wrote Love Like Farms, which I didn't really enjoy. The first 80% of Love Like Farms I really loved. The last 20% ruined the rest of it for me. I hated it. Especially the third act breakup. It is the dumbest reason. How they handled it is incredibly dumb. Everything about third act breakup is like the pinnacle of the example of why I don't think third act breakups are good in books. However, the book also has a third act breakup in it, and I think the author did a much better job at handling it. I think that their reasoning for breaking up makes a little more sense to where it's not something they can't come back from, or it's just this conflict is there for no reason. Also, the reason they get back together makes sense, where it doesn't seem like, oh, they're not actually over their issues that made them break up in the first place, and so they're just going to break up again as soon as the story ends, and things like that. So it's a really good book. And also, one of the things that made me go ahead and give this book a shot was that I kept reading reviews that said it had Meg Ryan rom-com vibes, and I'm like, okay, that's right up my alley. And so I had to give it a shot, and I'm so glad that I did. I love the two main characters. They have their flaws and everything like that, but it's not so much they're not unlikable or anything, but it's also not so few flaws to where you're like, okay, Mary Sue, or anything like that. So I really enjoyed that. I really liked the whole premise of the novel about him doing a radio show and her daughter calling in for her because she's worried about her mom's love life and everything, and it just goes viral and everything like that. And the main female character starts becoming a guest on the radio show, and the radio host starts falling in love with her, and she falls in love with him back, and it's just so sweet. I really enjoy this one a lot. I read this one in I think a day, maybe a day and a half or something. I can definitely see that if I took longer to read it, I could get a little bored with the fact that there's nothing really else going on other than the characters' romance. So if you are the type of person who wants a little something extra to go with your romance, then I would advise maybe not picking up this one. But if you like a little bit of adventure and a little something extra with your romance, then I would also suggest My Demon Hunter, which is another favorite book from this month that I read. This one is an ARC, so I got it from NetGalley in exchange for a honest review. And honestly, I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I love the first book a lot too, and I still am just absolutely obsessed with the series. I was a little skeptical at first because the main male character, that's hard to say, in this book, I wasn't all that interested in from the first book all that much, a little bit. I could kind of see his character turning into a cliche and not be all that interesting. And also I want to hear more about the brothers, because the book series is about a set of brothers that were all demons and everything, and they have escaped hell and they're on Earth trying to live their lives and everything like that. And the main male character in this book is the demon hunter, demon who hunts other demons to bring them back. And so I was just like, oh, I want to hear more about the brothers, not about him. But I ended up just absolutely loving this book. I honestly can't tell if I like this one more than the first one or not. One of the things that this author is amazing at is doing side characters. Just that's not something that I feel like enough authors do really well, is making the side characters pop enough to where it's interesting and they're fun to read about, but not so much to where they overshadow the main characters or anything like that. I also love how the story is a little different from the first one, but I'm really excited for the third one. I cannot wait. Also, this was an audiobook that I got, and also the narration was really well done. So if you like a little more adventure and everything, more other story than just romance with your romance, then I would suggest Enchantra, which is another ARC I got from NetGalley in exchange for a review. This is a sequel to Phantasma, which I've not read. So once again, this is me reading the second book in a series first. I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. But honestly, it's pretty standalone. I did feel like I was missing some world building and stuff like that. But the author is just so good at seamlessly integrating world building into the novel to where I don't feel like I've missed anything all that much over time. Yeah, in the beginning of the book, I felt a little lost. But as I read more and more and more, it started to piece together a little bit more and made a full picture of the world that she's in. But I really enjoyed this one. I also really enjoyed the main male character in this one. Rowan, I think is how you pronounce his name. I don't know, it's spelled differently than I'm used to for that name. It's one of the downsides of reading a physical book instead of having the audiobook is I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing these names right. But in this book, she is, once again, just like in the first one, from what I understand, she is going into these games to get a wish, and her wish is going to be to get information about her mother who passed away under mysterious circumstances. And then some stuff happens, which I don't want to go into because I don't want to give you any spoilers. But then she has to enter into a marriage of convenience with Rowan, the main male character. And ever since reading Morbidly Yours, that's a trope I quite enjoy now. So I really feel like the trope of marriage convenience doesn't really work usually in a book that has a modern setting. But I really feel like the author did a really good job of integrating that into the story, but also the world that she has built. There's just enough fantasy to make it where you're able to suspend your belief a little bit on certain things that we would not really do in the real world. But I really enjoyed this. I always thought that I wouldn't really like books that had sort of like a games to the death kind of thing going, because I really didn't like Hunger Games. I know that's a hot take, but I really just didn't like them. I tried reading the first book, and I just, like I said, just didn't like it. It wasn't for me, and so I DNF'd it and stopped reading it. But somehow, like, this author's made it where I actually did enjoy this part of the story quite a bit, and it was fascinating, it was fast-paced, it was thrilling without being too stressful, so I really enjoyed this one a lot. Next is Code Word Romance. I really enjoyed this one a lot as well. The romance I thought was really nice and didn't feel rushed or anything like that, because it's a second chance romance, and so sometimes I feel like that can either feel too rushed because of, they're like, oh, these people already have history or whatever, so we can just go ahead and just jump into it and not even make them get over the issues they had that made them break up in the first place. And this one, I feel like they really did tackle those nicely, where you could see them actually working through the issues that made them break up in the first place, which really made it feel like the characters really were getting together and not just thrown together because of circumstances, forced proximity, or the adrenaline from everything going on. Because as you can tell from the name, this is kind of like a spy novel, so there's a good bit of adventure to go along with the romance, and that was really nice. It really has me looking more online for more like romance suspense or suspense romance or whatever. I've seen it written both ways, where it's like an adventure with some romance in it, and because I really enjoyed this one so much. I really enjoyed some of the side characters, especially her roommate, who I thought was a nice like comedic relief. So next is I Think I'm in Love with an Alien, which is a really fun rom-com with like a sci-fi twist, because the main male character is an alien hiding on Earth, and the female character is a alien enthusiast. And so as you can imagine, a lot of hilarity ensues. So I actually read this book, Enchantra, My Demon Hunter, and Muted for a video where I do nothing but read arcs for an entire week, because I got in a whole bunch of NetGalley and it was affecting my feedback ratio score. And so I just needed to read a whole bunch of them all throughout the week and get the reviews out and everything like that, so that it would fix my score. Because there are some books I'm really excited about that I really want, and my score was way below 80%, which is what they recommend that you have on their website. So if you're interested in that video and seeing more in-depth reading along with those books, hit that subscribe button down below so you'll know when I'm posting it. It should be up next Friday. But as I said, this is just a really fun rom-com with a sci-fi twist. I really enjoyed the whole premise. It was very different. So the story is Tam is shipwrecked essentially on Earth after doing an intergalactic vacation that goes kind of awry, and he gets left here. And so he's having to sort of just assimilate and try and make do. And so one of the things he's done in order to not be so lonely is that he has joined like an online forum for people who believe in aliens, which he thought would be really funny, which, to be honest, it would be hilarious. So he's found a group of people that he all likes, and they're all friends online. And one of them, Jin, who invites everyone to come to something called SpaceCon for the weekend, which is like a convention about space, obviously. And so he decides to go to finally meet everyone who made his stay on Earth a little less lonely. It's a really sweet book. I really enjoyed it. The only thing I didn't really like is the interactions between all of the characters, with the exception of the two main characters, feel a little off. I can't quite put my finger on what's wrong with it. It feels very surface level, to the point of like AI written TV or something. Like, I don't know. Like, I understand that these people they're supposed to be awkward nerds and stuff like that, who only know each other through online forums, and they're meeting in person for the first time. So yeah, in the beginning, they're going to be a little awkward. It's going to be a little weird, but it continues on, even as the characters are talking about how close they are now and everything like that. I was like, well, are you really? Because it doesn't feel that way. But other than that, like, I really enjoyed the story. but it was just a nice, fun, light read that I think I read in like a day and a half, maybe. I really can't remember how long it took me. Not long, because for me, books either take like a day, day and a half, or they take several months. There's no in between for me usually. And it really doesn't say a lot about the book. It's really not a reflection on the book, really, usually. It's just, I'm a mood reader, and so when the mood strikes, and the mood doesn't strike, that's just the way it is. Next is Muted Volume 2. This is also an ARC, and also one that's going to be in my ARC for a week video. The artwork in this book, and the series alone, is just exquisite. It's the only way to describe the artwork. The artwork is gorgeous. There are several panels in the comic that I just wish I could frame on my wall. It's so pretty. So I've actually read Muted on Webtoon, because it's on the Webtoon app. And so mostly I was reading this book to kind of see how they changed the artwork from the Webtoon format, which scrolls down, to a book which has pages and flips and everything like that. And I really think they adapted the art really nicely. I read a few other Webtoon comics to books, and I sometimes just don't think the artwork translates well enough, and I think it really worked in this one. Also, story-wise, you're really getting more into the nitty-gritty of the story, which is just fascinating. You're really into the story, and you're just waiting for the next thing to happen. It's really sort of like, the best way to describe it, I think, would be like an iceberg, where the first book is like the tip of the iceberg, and we're now getting down to like the bottom, like the mid chunk of the iceberg, where it's like it's starting to get under the water, and it's starting to get kind of juicy and meaty there. So next is Scott and Bothered. So in case you can't tell from the title, it's set in Scotland. So already got some points from that. I love a beautiful setting. I love anything set in Scotland or Ireland or anything like that. The story of this one is kind of like a road trip romance, which I'm starting to really enjoy. I really haven't read that many of them yet, and so they still feel really fresh and new and fun to me. And I did like both the main characters in this. The only thing I really didn't love about the story was the dual timeline, because there's one timeline of the present day of them doing the trip to Scotland, the road trip, and everything like that. And then there's another timeline of them back in college, because they knew each other back in college, and then some big thing happened I'm not going to go into. And that's why they no longer speak in the present time. And honestly, I didn't really like it, because every time you're starting to get into the story in the modern time, it then sends you back in time to the previous timeline. And then when you're finally starting to get into that, into the rhythm of that, then it sends you back in the beginning. And it was just kind of, it seemed disjointed or something. I really can't put my finger on it once again. Why it didn't feel right, like it just kind of took you out of the story. How much it's flipped back and forth, or the way it flipped back and forth. Like I said, just can't put my finger on it. And that's the only thing I didn't like. I wish they just stuck with the modern time and maybe did something else in the story to help explain some of the backstory that needed in the previous timeline or something. I don't know what they could have done, because I'm not a writer, but something. Because like honestly, like wasn't super duper necessary to have both timelines. I would have much preferred it if it was just the modern one, the present day one, and maybe just had something, some other scene here and there to put in this, like whatever context the author felt we needed from the previous timeline. But I did really enjoy this author's like voice or writing style. Every once in a while though, it did feel like she's trying to make every other line like quotable on Goodreads or something, but that does make for a beautifully written book overall when it works. Next is 9-Month Contract. So this is a fun read. I really enjoyed all the side characters. I really do look forward to like their books, because it was very obvious all the brothers are going to get a book with how it's written. Sometimes it's really obvious when an author's just planning a series right from the get-go, and this is definitely one of those cases. So the story is about a group of brothers, and one of the brothers really wants to be a father, but he's not in a relationship or anything. And so one of his brothers, as a joke, puts an ad in the paper for like a surrogate, and a woman actually responds. And then, of course, the brother who wanted to be a father and the woman fall in love, of course. There were just a few things that really irritated me. Mainly is just, it feels like the main female character was contradicting herself a lot, and then just not really growing as a character all that much, and that was just kind of annoying. One of the examples that I can really give, now, spoiler, so I'm going to give you a second to click off. So, here's your warning, and spoiler. So she says she wants to be independent and everything like that and be on her own, and yet she keeps bringing back animals to the barn that she's not paying for. I don't know. It just seemed kind of contradicting itself a lot. It was really annoying. It's just, like I said, she just seemed a little immature is what I'm saying. and I didn't really like that. However, if you can look past that, which honestly is kind of a hard thing to look past, but if you can, it is a fun read. It's mostly like the relationships between the brothers I enjoy. Next is Shoot Your Shot, which is another hockey romance, which I've been reading a good bit of them ever since I discovered Icebreaker a while back. This one's a little different, or it just feels a little different. I can't even put my finger on how this feels different from most hockey romances that I've read, but I do like that it feels different. Maybe part of it is that it's a Grumpy Sunshine, but like reversed, where he is the sunshine character and she is the grumpy one. Maybe that's why it feels a little different. Because usually they have the hockey players as like a brooding, manly type or something that like likes to hit people on the ice, but is really gentle with her kind of thing. Whereas this, he's very optimistic. And for her, it really felt like there's a lot going on to where she was just kind of like, not really beat down from everything, but just burnt out, honestly. So I liked this one a good bit. It's nice, fun little read. It's honestly nothing super special to it other than this flip of the Grumpy Sunshine, which is a nice like change of pace for a hockey romance. And then last but not least, but okay, kind of least, would be Fake It Like You Mean It. I got the audiobook arc for this one. So typically when I listen to a book, I usually rate it higher than I normally would if I was reading it like on paper or on my e-reader or something, just because of audiobooks is honestly how I prefer to consume books. I'm an auditory learner. Growing up, all of my books were read to me when I was like in school and everything like that. And so it's just, to me, I like that better. And the fact that I still didn't like this book, even when it was an audiobook, really I feel like says something. I'm not sure what, but definitely says something. So my biggest issue with this was that it's enemies to lovers. Note the air quotes, because, well, I'll get into that. The main female character's reason for not liking the main male character is super dumb. I reread the beginning of the book, or re-listened to the beginning of the book a few times to try and see if I missed something, because I was like, why do you not like him this much? Like, what did he do to you? The reason for not liking each other makes no sense. I honestly can't even tell you what it is, because I still can't pinpoint where it was. I know what it's meant to be, or at least what it seems like it's meant to be story-wise, but that honestly in my mind cannot be it, because that does not make sense. And they get over it, of course, eventually, and I do love fake dating way too much. Kept it from being a DNF. And it was just it is a sweet story once they get over that. So it's sort of like the reverse of Love Light Farms, where like the last 20% of it ruined the first 80%. It's the other way around with this one. The beginning of the enemies to lovers ruined the whole rest of the book for me because of just how poorly it was handled and written and everything. Oh gosh, it irritates me so much. However, I do think this is a common issue with enemies to lovers now, because that trope has gotten so buzzwordy on Book Talk and Booktube and everything like that, to where books are trying to just shoehorn that in because they think that will make things go viral and get big on social media and then sell. And so a lot of times they have a story to tell and it doesn't work with enemies to lovers, but they shoehorn that in so they can get the buzz. And this is obviously one of those. So that's all the books I read in March. I didn't read near as many this month as I usually do because I got sick pretty bad for a while. So I only read 10 books this month, which still seems like a lot, but my average is about 12. So as I mentioned, if you're interested in hearing more about Enchantra, My Demon Hunter, I Think I'm in Love with an Alien, and Muted Volume 2, I would definitely hit that subscribe button or stick around for next week when I post the video where I read nothing but arcs for a week. But also, if you just like this video, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!